Good evening, everyone. As Manoharji said, this is something which has been in the making for the past 3 to 4 years now. And I'd like to thank all of the dignitaries who are present here with us today. We have our guest of honor, Shri Satya Kumar. We also have our chief guest, also from Railways, Shri Harish Gupta. Obviously, the support of RailTel has been completely necessary in making us reach to where we are today, and without them, that would not have been possible. So Shri Manohar Raja and Shri Vinod Kumar, thank you so much for all the support you guys have given. Before I jump into the presentation, we have a short 60-second video, which we'd like to take you guys through. Parth, if you could cue that up. Great. So thank you so much. If we can jump to the slides, please. So as you know, I think everybody already knows why we're here tonight. This is the debut of, thank you. This is the debut of India's first neutral shared RAN project. And again, you know, it has taken a very long time because anything innovative does. And we have had a fantastic team who's been able to work together to get us to where we are today. So, you know, what are our learnings? And I think that's basically what we're going to talk about the most tonight, which is given that we have done this, and it is definitely a change in the way we approach network deployment and network rollout, and we think about what the future of data is really going to bring. Let's focus on what are the key learnings that have come out from what we've been able to do so far. So, as anyone who knows about the Mumbai local train system knows that this is one of the most complex, one of the most densely loaded and intensely utilized rail systems in the world. We're carrying over 8 million passengers a day on weekdays, covering over 120 stations across 400 route kilometers of track. There's over 2,800 train services that operate on a daily basis. And if you think about, you know, the peak hours between you know, some of the loaded areas, if you look between, for example, Dadar and Churchgate, in the peak hour, there's somewhere between 60 to 65 services that take place, which means there's one train every minute at every station, which means at any given point in time, we're going to have 2 trains with 1,000 to 1,200 people sitting in any station, going into the station, coming out of the station. And that is the complexity that we wanted to deal with and figure out how can we possibly address this challenge. And the challenge is that today, the stations and tracks are not served by a dedicated solution. The way that that's generally done, and this is one of the biggest nightmares, you know, and we have 2 CTOs over here with us from RailTel and Vodafone who can you know, testify to that. One of the biggest challenges being faced is how do you optimize your network to serve these thousands and lakhs of people who are basically traveling on the train network on a daily basis as they're going from station to station and journeying, going through this entire journey. And these are the users who, while they're commuting, sometimes spending 90 minutes to 60, you know, to 120 minutes in each direction, they're wanting to consume media, They're wanting to do WhatsApp. They're wanting to look at their Instagrams. They're wanting to basically interact with the network. And the challenge that we face today is commuters face very poor network quality because the macro sites which are serving the stations today are not serving the stations or the tracks on a dedicated basis. They're also serving your roads, your traffic junctions. They're serving the buildings around the stations, which means the actual flats and the offices which are inside those buildings. So you don't have dedicated capacity and you don't have dedicated quality to serve this entire mass of people who are commuting for hours in the morning and hours in the evening. And if you see from an operator perspective, this is revenue which is being left on the table. Because if your consumer is not able to consume that data, if they're not able to access that YouTube video, if they're not able to watch their Amazon or Netflix, then that's data which is not being consumed, and that's revenue which is not being picked up by the operators. So this is the challenge that we saw before us. And 3-4 years ago, when we started speaking with RailTel, with Mr. Manohar specifically, we said, how can we work together and partner to effectively address this challenge? Now, if we see, we basically said that let us start with one of the most difficult areas to serve that we can possibly find in the country, and that is the Churchgate to Dadar stretch on the Western Railways. So if you look, the Western Railways, as compared to Central and Harbour, carry the most number of passengers in Bombay. And from Churchgate to Dadar, you will find many major stop points for office traffic in the morning and in the evenings. And these 9 stations cover 11.1 kilometers. They are, if you basically travel by the train, you will find today, or previously, a very poor quality of experience where sometimes it was even difficult to send a photo on a WhatsApp. It would take a long time to buffer and upload. Networks have improved, but even with 4G available, you will find many situations during peak hours where that remains a challenge. And because it's one of the highest traffic transit corridors in the country, we basically said that if we can do it here, then we can do it anywhere. And we can do it at any metro, any train, any airport, any other type of installation anywhere in the country. And that was the challenge that we took up to basically say that can these 150,000 passengers in the morning peak and the 150,000 passengers in the evening peak, can we find a solution that is not only technically sufficient, but is also commercially economical, and at the same time delivers a superior quality of service? So we set out to do this proof of concept at Mumbai Central, and basically the way that this was architected was we wanted to create a virtualized network solution which would be available for all operators to come and plug into. We know that there is obviously a lack of space in Bombay in general, but when you come down to the actual platforms and the stations, that lack of space is multiplied even more. So you don't have a lot of space to give individual operators a room where they can put all of their equipment. You can't give them multiple racks. You certainly don't have access to air conditioning or dedicated power supplies that are going to eat up huge amounts of energy. So we had to go with a virtualized solution because there had to be minimal infrastructure which would be deployed on the stations and the platforms themselves. There had to be a shared antenna solution which was going to be put along so that all operators could get access to that. And the virtual network had to be equal to all, which means they could not favor one operator, one band, or one technology over another. Because every operator, every player has their own specific strategies, their own way to serve their customers, and they also have their own customer patterns and their own traffic. And this virtualized solution is basically what we therefore derived. So if you see on the left side of this vertical gray line, this is the entire operator network. And this is what they already have in place today. This is the EPC, or the core network, what's referred to. And what we therefore did was we said that we will go to the RailTel Mahalakshmi data center, which is the centralized data center, and co-locate all of our equipment over there, which is our core router, our NOC setup, our NMS, and essentially use only a simple fiber uplink to the operator's EPCs. And the operator has to give nothing else physically beyond that point. You give us one fiber port. No nuts, bolts, screws, software, nothing else beyond that is required from the operator side. Work with us to do the planning. IP addresses, VLANs, sector IDs, and all the rest of that stuff. But everything to the right side of that gray line is what we as a virtualized network operator are bringing to the table. So we are partnering with RailTel to deliver the space in that data center and the patch panel connectivity between our switches and the operator core routers. The fiber connectivity from the Mahalakshmi data center to Mahalakshmi station, and then from that station to Bombay Central, is all provided by RailTel as well. And at every station, we have replicated this infrastructure of a shared BBU dedicated radios for each of the radio bands, and a shared antenna solution, which is distributed across the platforms, across the footover bridges, and across the waiting areas to make sure that we have a completely distributed and high-quality signal which is being made available to all users. And the spectrum, which is being radiated from the solution, is the operator's own spectrum. So as a customer who is walking into Mumbai Central Station, you are still attached to RailTel or Vodafone, but you don't know that you've now attached onto our solution, which is being delivered, because it's, again, on the same spectrum that is being delivered outside the station. And because you have dedicated spectrum for each of the operators, you also have, therefore, dedicated capacity and dedicated power available. And that gives the operators an ultimate flexibility to say, how do I want to do my optimization? Do I want to increase power, decrease power? Do I want to add more sectors? Do I handle my PRB utilization in a slightly different way than what others may want to think about it? And how do I set all of my handover parameters? So we're able to deliver the convenience and the advantages of a virtualized solution, but at the same time ensure that every telecom operator has the ability to uniquely set their own parameters and to uniquely serve their customers how they would like to best serve them. So what did we actually do at Mumbai Central? So Mumbai Central, for those who have not been there, basically has 4 train tracks dedicated for the local and express trains, which is part of the suburban network, plus an additional 5 tracks for the long-distance trains, which is the intercity trains. And these are served by 2 platforms on the local and express side and 3 physical platforms on the long-distance side. So to cover these, we deployed 1 shared BBU provided to us as a Nokia AirScale solution, and that had attached to it 3 pairs of dedicated RRUs, 1 for band 40 and 1 for band 41, so that we could serve the LTE TDE solution in each of the bands. Again, provided to us as part of the Nokia solution. This is connected to a Nokia cell-side router, which then goes back to our NOC and is connected to a NetAct system. And in operation, we have, therefore, today, we're operating 6 cells for operator 1, because that operator has 2 carriers that's available here in LTE, in TD LTE in Bombay, and the other operator is carrying 3 cells across each of the 3, sort of across the 3 sectors. And like I mentioned earlier, the way we've designed the solution is to ensure that we have placed antennas across all of the platforms into the waiting areas and every nook and corner of the station, so that we have a uniform signal which is being deployed. You have the highest quality signal which is made available. And at the same time, you are being energy efficient because you're not having to radiate extra power. You're not having to create a situation of high EMF because of high power output that's being generated. And you are basically delivering quality of service to end customers, which is superior to what they used to have before. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, these are some of the pictures from Mumbai Central from the deployment. We have, in the bottom left, the centralized BBU unit. So unlike the typical situation where you would need a dedicated network room, or you would need racks and racks of equipment for each of the operators, the entire solution for 2 operators, and we'll show you how much traffic we're carrying, but across all of the 9 carriers that are working right now, is basically just taking up the space of a whiteboard on a wall. No temperature control, nothing else required, and completely working on just basic raw AC power that we've converted to DC, made available at the station by the railways. This is then attached to these RRU installations, which are there on the local tracks we have on platform 1, 2, 1 set, on platform 3, 4, another set, and the third set is to serve the footover bridges and the waiting area. And these directional panel antennas, as you can see, they're mounted right next to the roof, so they're basically hidden away. There's no visual clutter. There's no wiring clutter. There's no additional infrastructure that anyone can notice. It basically blends into the environment of what's already there. And likewise, the small patch panel antennas, which are there in the footover bridge areas and the waiting areas, are also basically hidden away. And so what does this actually mean in terms of user experience? So before we launched this in April. We did a whole bunch of testing over the years, and most recently we did tests in March, and then we did tests again in May after turning off the solution once we've turned it on. And we benchmarked what was the user experience prior to the solution being installed. And as you can see across the operators, across all of the different areas, the speeds, while they're good for wireless, but they're certainly not as good as the benchmarks that even the operators would like their own users to experience. So the ranges were between 2.5 Mbps for average users during the peak time to up to 7.5 Mbps download speed for users during the peak time. And once we deployed our solution, those averages shot up. Now you can see we've gone from 2.5 Mbps to a minimum of 10.5 Mbps and up to as much as 30 Mbps on average during peak. That's a 4x increase for one of the operators and a 5.5x increase for the other operator. And this is not peak speed. This is actual average speed experienced by consumers during peak, during the morning peak and the evening peak. So it's a huge, huge difference by providing this kind of solution, and the type of quality of experience that the customers will be seeing is the ability to actually therefore consume that media, consume that content, not be stuck in buffering, and get a much better overall experience while they're going through their commute. This also translates into the ability to do more reliable and better voice calls, because as we all know now, VoLTE in 4G in TDD, 4G and LTE is also basically a data call, and it is running over the data channel as well. So this improves that experience as well. And I think when we set out to do this project, or when generally people set out to do these these technology projects, you will expect that there will be X percentage improvement. Maybe you'll get 100% or 200%. But I think as a team, we work very hard along with the operators, along with our equipment partners, to optimize this in such a way that we're able to say that we're getting a 4 to 5.5x improvement on what the previous user experience used to be. And what does this translate into actual data consumption, and therefore from data consumption into actual revenue? So what we see is approximately an uplift from an average per day consumption of 3,300 gigabytes in this microgeography that's now getting uplifted to about 4,500 gigabytes a day, of which our solution is taking 480 gigs of traffic a day on average in August month. And that's increasing, actually. That's going up. There's some experiments that we're doing that will further increase that. And likewise, a similar percentage increase on the other side, where you see 365 gigs of traffic being carried a day. And I think one of the other impressive metrics is that on a monthly basis, we are now touching 684,000 unique customers a month who are actually connecting to and being served by the solution across both the operators combined. And if we just basically take a look back and we see that, look, this was revenue and traffic that customers were not able to consume previously. This was revenue that was potentially being left on the table prior to the deployment of the solution. And by working in this partnership ecosystem and deploying this, we are able to improve the customer experience, but we're also able to improve for the telcos what they're able to do to serve their customers. So what are the key learnings coming out of this in terms of the shared RAN advantages, and where do we see this going forward? So the first is for railways and RailTel as key stakeholders in this entire ecosystem. The first is the ability to move up the value chain, right? So RailTel prides itself in being one of the largest neutral ICT and infrastructure services providers for the telecom industry in the country today. And the ability to now offer an active shared RAN solution is one more capability in the portfolio, one more feather in their cap. And this is something that can be scaled up not only across all railways, but all major infrastructure projects across all government types of ventures, whether it is metros or it's airports or things of that sort. The ability to take this entire shared RAN architecture and the learnings from this and take that out to be present and available in all infrastructure projects presents a huge market opportunity going forward. Plus, you're able to provide equal access to all the telecom operators with 1/3 the infrastructure, and including huge energy savings, space savings, and everything else that comes along with that. For operators, while I know Shribasti and Utkarsh will not necessarily agree, but we do promise lower TCO over time. bear with us in the beginning. It's low volume. It's early days. With many of the other things that we as an organization have pioneered, whether it was small cells hosting or whether it's the aerial fiber work we're doing, price always starts high on day one. And that is a note to Vinish, who's sitting in the front row. It starts high on day one, but it comes down over time, for sure. And with scale, I think as shared RAN matures, and we're not saying we're the only ones. We happen to be the first, but everyone else will basically pick up on this technology and we'll see the advantage of this. And as this grows, we are sure to deliver a total cost of ownership decline over existing TCOs that will be upwards of 25 to 30% over existing costs. And that is also the target we want to set out. And this also then results in increased revenue and traffic, and is also therefore, and is also, because of the architecture we're using, immediately upgradable to 5G now that 5G is coming as well. And finally, for customers, even they get an advantage because they get superior throughput, seamless coverage, and an enhanced quality of experience. So what is the opportunity now going ahead? And I alluded to one of these opportunities, which is, which I'll get to. But the first is about IBS and commercial deployments across the country. There's projections out there about 1 billion square feet of grade A commercial real estate that's yet to be built out between now and 2026. There are 606 stations and 750 kilometers of operational route in metros, and 900 kilometers more being built today. 84 operational airports, all of which need to be upgraded from 4G to 5G. Some of them don't even have 4G as an IBS solution, so they need to get 4G first. And finally, for the Indian Railways itself, there's 400 plus grade A and A1 stations across the country. And I think if we look at the massive size of this opportunity for infrastructure upgrade and infrastructure development and the ability to offer these services, we, at least at CloudExtel, are extremely confident about the future that shared RAN holds. And we're very, very proud to be pioneering this and being one of the players who we believe will go out and capture this huge market opportunity, of course, with the help of all of our partners in this ecosystem and everybody who is here today. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Really appreciate you guys coming and supporting us in this dream and this endeavor that we've had for a long time. And look forward to some very enriching discussions as we move ahead in the rest of the evening. Thank you.